is standing by to share the latest on the Tulsi twins and their sentencing, which I said came as quite a surprise to me. So, is this a good thing? Is this serving the interests of the Tulsi twins? Salaam alaikum, Nadeem. Welcome to the program. And as always, always great talking to you.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah, Julie, and salam alaikum to all your listeners. Julie, when you have uh, a complicated and extremely sensitive matter such as this one, where you have two, and I'm going to use the word innocent, and I'll explain to you, and I'll quantify and qualify that just now. But when you have a very complicated and sensitive matter involving two innocent young boys, as they were at the time of their arrest, who remain in custody and in detention for almost 6 years, and who the court, in a bail application, um, says that because of certain technicalities in the bail affidavit, or because of certain other factors, that he's not prepared to choose liberty over those those aspects or those technical issues or whatever they were at the time. I'm not going to get into the bail issues some time ago already. And the boys then remain in custody, and you have a state who, by their own admission, dragged their feet substantially. As you know, the trial was supposed to start in January last year. The state was ready. And in fact, even January this year, the state still wasn't ready. And the state then produced a, a, a trolley full of confidential information, a trolley full. And I don't know if you saw, there was a picture posted of it by some of the media houses on that
Mm.
day in court. I
Yes.
think it was on the 27th of Jan or 26th of Jan,
Mm-hmm.
20th of Jan, I can't remember now off the top of my head. And when you have a situation like that, the writing really is on the wall insofar as how long this trial is going to continue for, how long the boys are now expected to endure and continue to endure this. It really is tantamount to torture, because you've got a situation where, and I said it on the last time we were on the show together, and I'll say it again, their resolve is unbreakable. Their iman is unbelievable. Um, but for them, their main concern was the fact that they had a family who were languishing without them. So it's
Mm.
not, in normal cases, you have the accused or the prisoners languishing in jail whilst the family are outside. But in this instance, the family felt it more than they did. The family
Mm.
missed them, they longed for them, um, and they worried about them, even though the boys themselves didn't have any worries, and they had their hearts were at rest. So to say, is it a good thing? Absolutely, because what it means in essence, and probably was going to be your next question, but what it means in essence is that now the laws relating to parole come into effect in a massive way. Yes, they were convicted of those substantial period of time of the years, and remember that the years in essence don't really mean much, because they've spent such a long period of time already in custody before the sentencing. The accused number one, Brandon Lee Salahuddin, he got 11 years, and accused number two, the 8 years, sorry, 8 years for Salahuddin, Brandon, and 11 years for Tony Lee Yakin, and and 6 of those years already served to be taken into account. Now, in accordance with the Correctional Services Act, and according to the rules for parole, you only have to serve half, or at the worst case, 2/3 of your total sentence to be eligible for parole, not the remaining portion of the sentence. Now you can do the
Okay,
math.
so
Go on.
yeah, and Nadim, let me ask you this question, two questions which you can then respond to. Why the difference in the twins' sentences? The one is only been has been jailed for 8, and then the other for 11. Is that correct? Then
That's
that's
correct.
the one issue. The second issue is that you talk about parole, which is a reprieve in a manner of speaking, which inshallah they'll only then serve half of the remaining time that they've already served in prison. How soon does the process kick into place? So those two issues, if you can respond to.
I'll start with the second issue just because I think I was on that point. It's not half of the remaining period, Julie. It's half of the total sentence period.
Okay. But they've already,
So,
what will be taken into account is they have already served, they've already been in jail for 6 years. So that in effect,
exactly.
right, that in effect has now cut down their jail term or the incarceration term.
So, Julie, I want you to just compute this for a second. And I know that you're not a lawyer, but just let's understand this. So I say to you that in terms of the act, you have to serve half, or in serious crime situations, 2/3 of your total
Okay.
sentence period. So
Mm,
let's just take Salahuddin, accused number one. He was sentenced to 8 years. So how many years would he have to serve in order to be eligible for parole on the basis that I've explained to you? In the worst
oh,
case, six
yeah.
years. In the
All
best
right.
case, 4 years.
Okay. And
So
that's
what does
after
it
the,
mean?
yeah. So that is after the parole process kicks in. Am I correct?
So that means that the 6 years already served means he's already served more than the 2/3 required for
Ah,
purposes of
okay.
right. Let's go. Let's
Mhm.
look at Yakin. Yakin got 11 years. If Yakin has to serve half of the 11-year period, he has to serve 5.5 years. If
Right.
Yakin has to serve 2/3 of the 11-year period, he has to serve 8 years in total. No, it's 7 years in total. That means worst case for Yakin, he's eligible for parole. Best case is he's eligible for parole immediately. Worst case, he's eligible for parole in 8 months' time.
Oh, that's absolute good news. Absolutely wonderful.
So
However,
I
so
just want everybody to understand that
mm,
this is what is so important about. And look, I mean, it's already been discussed by many people, and in a lot of the news reports where experts were called in to deliberate on this aspect, other experts, legal experts with other radio stations, which I've heard. This information has already been given. So I want to now expand on this, even though I wouldn't have ordinarily, because I don't want anything to jeopardize the opportunities at getting the earliest possible parole. That would mean
okay, I'm
effectively.
losing you there, Nadim. I'm losing you there.
Sorry, did you hear me there?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you now. Continue, please.
Yeah. So that means is in essence that when we discussed this and when we came to this final deal, we did it having an understanding and knowing what the law is in respect of parole and taking into account the time that's served, and more importantly, taking into account the length of time that this trial would still continue to go on for, not knowing what the outcome may be based on what the state might or might not do in the process and duration of the trial. So, yes, I understand that you were shocked by the news, and I understand that a lot of people have questions, and I understand that a lot of people are uncertain as to exactly what happened and how it transpired. But that is the quantification of what happened.
Okay, Nadim, so as you know that we are stretched for time, so let me put two more very important questions to you. You still have to explain to us why there's a difference in the sentences
Yes,
for the boys. That's the
yes,
one thing. And my final two questions to you would be, we understand that there's various portions of obviously the agreement that was reached between the state and the defense team, but there's a lot of confidentiality involved here. And we understand there's issues of privacy and so forth. Is that usual as far as South African law is concerned? And then, having pleaded guilty, does this not hang over the boys for the rest of their life? I'm thinking having a criminal record and having this record of charges of terrorism, does that mean that their fate is sealed? They'll never be able to travel outside of the country? That their restrictions are going to be very, very closely monitored for the rest of their lives, perhaps, and that they won't have free, movement in and outside of the country?
yeah. Julie, so very quickly, with regards to the difference between the two, I mean, there's just so much to talk to you about, and I wish we had more time because I want to explain this to you, but I'll quickly go through it. What the the Salahuddin was being the 8 year the accused who received 8 years abandoned to see accused number one. Salahuddin was did not communicate with a single person. He did not send a single text message. He did not send a
Ah,
single telegram message. He did not do anything. He was convicted based on the fact that he downloaded a book which was called the Mujahir's Guide to the West, and he ought to have known based on what the state says in terms of the act. He ought to have known that doing so would further the activities of a terrorist organization such as ISIS. That's it.
mhm.
That is the
Okay.
basis upon what he was convicted on. In addition thereto, the fact that he wanted to travel to Syria to make hijrah, he traveled with an individual,
Nadine,
Ronaldo Smith.
just stand still where
Yes,
you are and continue talking because I lost you there for a minute. We reached the point of Syria, so if you want to pick up from there.
yes, yes. So he wanted to travel to Syria to make hijrah, to live under an Islamic ruled country because he wanted to do it and he was doing it with a person, Ronaldo Smith, who he knew or ought to have known wanted to go and fight for ISIS. That made him guilty of a contravention of Pakhtara. In respect of
Okay.
accused number two, the same thing in respect of the first count, wanting to travel to Syria to make hijrah. The difference, however, in respect of the second count, which is the third alternative to count four, what he then did was he communicated with a CIA, with an FBI operative who he did not know was an FBI operative, who baited him into saying things like, I want to go to Syria and I want to go to ISIS. And the reason why he did that, based on the information contained in the docket and contained in the plea explanation, was because he wanted money to go with his brother to go and make hijrah. But he was baited into saying it. Basically, the operative, in no uncertain terms, said to him, if you say X, Y, and Z, this organization will send you money and then you can travel to wherever you want to travel to. The
Okay.
boys were
Okay.
utilized as pawns in an unbelievably deceptive and fiendish trap which the state was not even going to be allowed to utilize at the trial.
All right. And then finally, my last question to you: restriction of their movements in and out of the country.
Julie, in terms of the, and it's a difficult one, but in terms of the UN Council regulations on terrorism, the boys will be branded as terrorists because the acts the council which they had to plead to were terrorism related counts, obviously. Um, I don't know the practical effect of it. Um, I don't know that they'll be able to go to the States anytime soon, or to the UK, or to France. But I don't think that the movement will be restricted indefinitely. I think over a period of time, that will ease up. As long as the world knows and they know that they're not terrorists and that they had no intentions to bomb anyone or to hurt anyone, and the judge says this in his judgment. He says we are not going to punish people for their ideologies, their beliefs, their faith, or their motivation. This court is not that type of court that punishes people for their thoughts. It's when those thoughts become actions and those actions contravene the sanctions or the tenets of the laws of this country is when we punish people. He says this in his judgment, and when I get the judgment, I'll hand it to you guys and you can read it because it's such an important thing for a type of case that has never been tried before in this country, save for that of Henry Oka, which the judge himself said was vastly different, and to use his words, unsimilar to this case. So this is really a precedent matter.
Okay, right, Nadeem, that's where we're going to have to leave it. I think you and I need to work on an in-depth interview one of the days soon, possibly going for the full hour, and we can truly unpack this. So we will be in touch. Shukran very much for your support to the Tulsi twins, and for the sterling work that was done by you and your team. And shukran for always being available to talk to us here on Salam Media. Assalamu alaikum. 8:26 exactly, and there you have it from Nadeem Mohamed, the twins attorney, talking to us about that plea bargaining or plea agreement between the defense and the state on the Tulsi twins case. 8:26. We'll be back with you in a minute or two, inshallah.